Greetings, I am
And hi, I'm Scandal. Sorry, that was me going, I'm going to sneeze.
And let's try not to sneeze together. My poor friend here.
It's fine.
Die. We thought we were prepared.
I am not prepared.
And
All right.
suddenly it happened.
Let's
so
try not to sneeze with Grandma together.
Do
All right,
not
Grandma.
sneeze on the people watching. It's a contagion. You can't do it.
Oh, no, I have to look that way.
You sneeze away from the screen quickly.
Yeah, very quick. All right.
So we respect your germ boundaries. We won't sneeze on you.
Well, you know, things get transmitted through the net.
Okay. So real quick tangent before we get started. One time, in the many compilations of stories that I was reading, because I love to read like short stories that are in great big gatherums. Short stories are kind of a hobby of mine.
Yep.
Within my many hobbies that I've now listed. I read this story, there's this big gatherum that Barnes & Noble did of like 100 vampire stories, right?
Yep.
And they're all different genres around them. And one of them is literally this vampire working over the internet and sucking the life out of people through their keyboards. So things transmitted through the internet, you know?
Reasonable.
All right. And it's funny because the person who's like trying to track them down, who's doing, you know, your Van Helsing style, like interwebs, basically espionage kind of thing. It's so great because they're like a hacker and a vampire slayer. They're your hacker slayer.
Yep.
And it's like they find this vampire online and they're like, I thought the blood was the life, referring back to old Dracula, you know? And they're like, oh, bless you. There it is, folks. We got it. And they're like, technically, the life is the life. So it was
smarty.
It was charming. Anyway, She reminds me of my grandma. Cannon, you have a grandma.
You do. So you're Mr. Pleased to finally meet you.
Oh my God. It's the level of enthusiasm is strong, though I feel like I'm not sure what posture they were going for here because that silhouette is unusual to me.
Okay, so for me, do you know what it makes me think of?
What?
It makes me think of somehow, so what I did is I threw my shoulders back.
Okay.
And then I thrust my chest forward, and then I sort of just like angled my hips
back. So you got this sort of the S curve going on.
I'm like, it looks.
Wow.
I'm like, which I understand. Sometimes people basically have spinal difficulties and they have differences in regards to how their body functions. It just seems strange, considering everything else, and also like the really broad stance. I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah,
this is Grandma.
We're trying to make a thigh gap experience, I guess, but what that is that your feet are pretty far apart.
Yeah.
And just there's a hip experience there. Anyway.
You can call me Irma! I'm Rena's mother!
And as you're going, oh my God, Rena's sleeping. Rena is literally sleeping. Why are we meeting you while she's sleeping?
I thought you were Grandma.
You're Rena's mother. Late baby? Like menopause baby?
I don't know.
Sometimes teenagers, kids, anybody will surprise you with their knowledge in a certain area because we all pick up weird little factoids and tidbits in occasional places. And sometimes, even though your general knowledge, like diagram of the world is over here, like way, way off to the side,
right.
You have one little point of knowledge over here off in the distance.
Yes.
And someone's like, and you're like, wow, they look like Grandma. Is that a menopause baby?
And you go,
what?
I just broke my neck. What did you just say?
So I actually had a friend, and I mentioned this in one other playthrough, that was a menopause baby, and his parents did look like his grandparents, and all of his siblings were grown up, moved out, and through college before he was born. He was amazing.
Who is that?
I've mentioned a couple of times before, but you've never met him.
Okay.
I was to say this was back when I was in high school, but he was super cool. He was
I was like,
odd, brilliant child.
Of the people I have met,
No.
which one?
You have not met him. I apologize.
Okay.
All right. I'm Rena's mother.
Bellowing.
Oh, hello, Ms. Irma. I didn't know you are visiting today. I didn't know you're visiting today. I didn't know grammar today.
So I understand that. I have actually done basically something like that where what you're doing is you say it, but you do actually mean you're visiting. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like,
it's okay. I
get
can see it. It just sounds a little bit odd, but I'm also like, we chose Ms. Like, that was the thing of, hello, Ms. Irma.
Also, I'm Irma. I'm going to call you Ms. Irma. 1, Ms. Number 2, Irma. is that then Rena Irma?
I know.
Like, is that the last name?
Well, and she literally says, "You can call me Irma," and then we're like, "Ms. Irma," and maybe that's a formal thing, like, you know, Rena calling us Mister. Hey, Mister.
Again, also in regards to having Japanese, if you went first name San, it would make sense, but also first names are really personal and intimate, so that's really weird.
Again, though, I'm just like, is this Rena's surprise, or is this an adult that wanted something from you after Rena was talking to you?
That's terrifying.
Which is maybe why Rena didn't know how to describe it, but being like, my mom will be here tomorrow, and I know she wants to meet you, so there's this thing I want to talk to you about, but I'm not sure how it's supposed to work. And then you've got basically her showing up during visiting hours, but maybe even before she goes to work, which is so early in the morning, Irma gets there.
Right.
And then she goes to see the nurse, you know, she's like, hey, Miki, so I was supposed to meet Mr. today, this lovely young man my daughter keeps talking to me about all the time. And going, I only got a little while to be here. Could you please, you know, would it be possible to fetch him? And she's like, I will drag him out of bed immediately for you.
Or just going, do you know when he's going to be here?
Right.
Like,
or when he's available.
Sounds incredibly fucking entitled. Like,
it could be a level of, is he available?
Yeah.
And Miki's just like, oh, he's available.
Oh, he's totally available. He's
watch.
just sleeping.
Yep, and she may have no idea that you were just dragged out of bed.
Honestly, that's another thing that leaves me wondering in regards to, like, where people were saying in the Play Store for going who we picked, and a lot of it was like Miki. There's a lot of Miki, and I'm going like, I was originally going, it would be more interesting basically just in the sense of maybe the adults will treat you more like a person.
Right.
And I almost thought, like, okay, Miki makes sense, but now I'm like, Miki is just as bad as literally everyone else of going, I'm going to belittle you, I'm going to control you, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with you, I'm going to also, weird, none of these feel very, you see, I like equality in my relationships, unless I'm specifically going for something that's not. And then I usually don't trust people to do it well, because I have learned that what I'm in for is not what they're in for.
So what I have to say is that generally in relationships, even fictional ones, I like equality, but especially in real life ones. Yes. And again, I've discussed what the equality looks like.
No
in
questions.
That it doesn't mean that you are literally the same everywhere. It means you treat each other as equals.
Yes.
Right? And so for me, in fictional relationships, if you are not treating each other as equals, you're at least both happy.
Right.
That I don't go in for the drama of one person, you know, abusing and mistreating another. Not because you can't write that and other people can't enjoy it, but I have outgrown it. I enjoyed it in certain ways when I was very young, but I realized as I get older that I was only enjoying pieces of it. I wasn't enjoying really the abuse cycle or the mistreatment. What I was enjoying was the tension and romantic, or in some cases sexual catharsis that was available in those stories that didn't seem to be in other stories.
Right. Well, I can totally see that. Like, a lot of times I think even for me, basically with let's just go off about power dynamics for me, is really also the sense of what for me always appealed was the fact that this idea of, like, safety, of, like, I'm going to basically take over your life, but also it's going to be better for you. Things are just going to go nicer. You're just going to have a better time. I know who you are as a person. Like, you feel more valued or involved, or even just, like, I don't have to worry about now the outside world.
More comfortable.
More comfortable.
So sometimes people say, I feel safe, but I've made the argument before, one of my big rants is that if you're safe, there's something that is putting you in danger and you're safe from it.
But sometimes, though, that is literally what you're going for, is to feel safe, because there are bad things going on.
And sometimes you can feel safe, but it also increases your level of comfort. Areas where you don't need to feel safe anymore because you just feel comfortable.
Right.
Because money is no longer a danger, even if there's other shit out there that can hurt you emotionally.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, hi, Ms. Irma. I didn't know you're visiting today, but also I didn't know you existed at all, or that there was someone to be visiting.
So I was gonna say that basically, yeah, I've done conjugations of you and were, together in that way of your, but that's like a very, I know for some people they hate the shit out of it, but it is a thing that people do grammatically while speaking a
and it
lot.
Can be you are or you were.
Like, I've done it before, and sometimes I know it's confused my friend, because actually we've talked about it in regards to sometimes, like, with conversations or where I've written some things. My friend is like, "What the hell is that?" And I'm like, conjugating this thing with this thing. You can do that? I'm like, it's technically not supposed to be there at all, but I do it anyway.
Theoretically, yes, because contractions, while there are accepted contractions, there's just a rule for making contractions. And technically you can contract almost anything together if you follow those rules, and it's fascinating.
It's so weird. Someone has to take care of my daughter, right?
Not these piss-ass nurses!
Bitches!
The hospital not going to do it, even though she lives here, so it falls to me.
Alas.
I'm like...
Everyone gets to see more of me. Perfect!
I'm just like, someone has to take care of my daughter. Not of Rena, but of my daughter. That's an interesting level for me of like strong entitlement, but also going, I need to be here to take care of her, bitch.
Well, I mean...
Now, it could also be done a lot softer of going, someone has to take care of my daughter, right?
Right?
Like, and she could mean emotional needs and such, but that sounds really empty for all the level of implication that could be there.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm working 2 jobs, but no matter how busy things get, I make it a point to visit. I am doing the rise and grind thing of going, I'm working hard, my child suffers from 3rd-degree cancer, and, you know...
3rd-degree waifu.
Third-degree waifu, chronic waifu disease.
Stage 4 chronic waifu disease.
And it's super intermittent, and it's very difficult.
And you need to understand that I, as a single mother, which I'm going to imply but not state, am going to tell you that I work hard enough to deserve to have access to such a beautiful, talented, gentle, soft, young person that is my daughter. Anyway, so
I would find this particular trope frustrating, whether or not it was basically someone who was identified as a man, someone who was identified as more basically queer or indeterminate, or someone who is a woman. This sort of thing always gets my goat, as it were, quite often, because I don't like the cultural thing of going, this woman has worked her ass off and continues to do so, and I still make time for my child, and potentially, if she is divorced, with the Ms., which seems really strange that Mr. would know that. And again, we've discussed how it's really shitty that basically women have titles, prefixes that go before their names that literally let everybody know what their relationship status is, and men don't, so, you know, put that on the table too. But it's just like, I don't care for it. I think it's shitty. I also think it's basically taking advantage of a lot of people, especially in regards to capitalism and the way that it abuses people.
It continues to basically dig in that hard work meritocracy of going, this person is a clear person with morals and, you know, values and, you know, structure in their life. They know where, you know, basically the meaningful things are.
There's also that thing, though, too, is this, if she is a single mom, if this individual is a single parent at all, that even puts on more weight of going, even though I'm doing this alone, I truly deserve to have the, like, there is a thing that people will basically just, like, play that card of going, you should care more.
Right.
And I'm not saying the single parents aren't badass as hell. Like, absolutely. Like, totally, hands down, they deserve so much more support than they do. And I don't know how they necessarily treat it in other countries, but it's pretty horrible sometimes, especially with how women get treated in regards to being single parents. But I'm just like...
There's this level of mothers that work hard and destroy themselves and never have any happiness at all, but sacrifice everything for their kids until their mind, their body, and their ambitions are all destroyed, but their kids' success is the most meritable thing in the world.
Yes.
And that's harmful, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it's incredibly harmful.
So the problem I'm having here is going, is she just a massively defensive and aggressive person that this is the way she's introducing herself? Going, if you're like, hi, nice to meet you, and she's like, I'm working 2 jobs, but no matter how busy things get, I make it a point to visit. Like, that sounds super defensive of someone that's like, hi, I just met you. How's a...
It could be that. It also could be what you guys might know of as bad writing. So this is what they call poor exposition.
Let me describe this character to you real quick. You're not going to learn about them, but I'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly. But also, like, that this is literally, hi, I'm this thing, and I do this stuff with these things and whatever else. Like, sometimes it is deliberately really poor exposition where somebody's going, right, that's just how normal people talk. You go, no. Like, your character didn't ask, unless basically, again, you are establishing that Irma here is incredibly, like, oversharey in that way, or just very much like, I am defensive, as my friend Lies talks about, or even just going, this is how people talk. I will share my story with everyone, which puts me on edge, because if you guys know anything about me, my mom has this habit, and it pisses me off.
Right, and so I'm willing absolutely to go with the bad writing thing, but if you don't do bad writing, it just sounds like Irma's real defensive.
Yes.
Like, she is very insecure and is immediately defensive of her position. And as I've talked about, like, in daycare or in, like, church groups and things, and definitely knowing, you know, parents that were friends of my mom, that sort of thing, and, you know, other adults, you know, in other adult groups that I've been in, as I've gotten to be an adult myself. There's been this experience of a lot of mothers that I have met being very defensive of essentially what their merits are.
Yeah.
And a lot of times being defensive so much of their particular insecurities, that the things that, you might just mention something offhandedly, and if it's their particular insecurity, there's going to be a really strong experience of, I'll get defensive right now. In the same way that I've mentioned before, where like if I've been watching someone else's kid, they're like, well, not everyone can be as patient as you. And I'm like, I'm not lauding my patience or anything. I was just literally having a conversation with your kid in the way that I feel is like a way I'm comfortable talking to kids. Like not even the way I think it should be done, just how I'm comfortable doing it, right?
Right.
And then you're like, wow, we're so patient in that conversation. Not everyone can do that. And I'm like, you seem real defensive, my dear. And that's what this feels like to me.
Yes. But also at the same time, too, like...
What?
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 What? That is assuming the preclusion, or I'm using my words wrong, I don't care. That is assuming basically that Mr. knows more than he does.
That's
like that
point.
Statement. That's a good point.
And he's thinking it like in his own head. So there's this experience of going, I didn't know you were coming today. And her going, well, as a mother, I would, even though I'm super fucking busy, I'm going to be here. That's a good point. And so a good point suggesting that perhaps she's here every single day? Or that's a good point that why wouldn't a mother that has the preference of being here be here? Or that's a good point that someone needs to take care of Rena, except for people are taking care of Rena, even if they're not necessarily meeting her emotional, social, psychological needs, they are taking care of her.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. What should I do now?
What?
So we literally were just standing there staring at her after she's like, even though I work 2 jobs, I'm always going to make time for my kids.
This also sounds like the way their conversation is kind of running. Like, you could take that as, even though I work 2 jobs, it almost sounds like you could even just say that Irma and Mr. have already met each other. Him going, I wasn't aware you were coming here today. Like, that's why I'm saying this is confusing, because this sounds like...
Okay, so what if, in the same way that I've said the flowcharts are really limited for this, and if you don't know what I mean when I say flowchart, just look up flowchart. It's just a little bunch of connected thought bubbles together, okay?
Right.
Of just leading from one thing to another. But they're very direct to understand.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but maybe the flowchart for this game assumes, again, that you're coming off of either choice in the past of either staying at the stairs or going to Rena's room. And if you went to Rena's room, you would have already met her mother.
Oh.
And so it's trying to do well, if you haven't met her, this is the introduction. But if you have met her, this follows that up. And it's just feeling awkward because it doesn't do both well.
Yeah.
And again, even when I've gone back and checked in on games that we only play through once on screen, and I'll just sort of pap through quickly to go, I'm curious about story construction, because literary analysis, who knew, right?
Yes.
I say, there is an experience of the flowcharts being really, really limited and them trying to lead one piece into another. And I go, wow, this makes way more sense from one side than from the other. And there's ways to rewrite it that either would add just like one more step and then bring you back to like a slightly earlier point, or that would, they would work better than what they did, be more universal. And I think what a lot of these games fail to do successfully when they're trying to bring 2 different choices together into the same main path,
right,
is think about that they can arrive on the same path with a very slightly different intro sentence kind of thing, and they don't otherwise do it. Anyway, we're going to hit a choice, so what should I do now?
Hi.
Shake her hand, hug her like grandma. Whoa. Not ask her or offer a hug.
Stare into her eyes, unblinking. Wow, like the edgy, there's weird levels of like, this is supposed to be funny, or like Mr. has some sort of attitude or something. I just don't connect with this because he acts so weird in all the other stuff.
So, one, I continue to feel like this is him being drugged the whole time because a lot of this feels so weird. And some of it really could be, again, like a translation that it wasn't originally an English game. And so it makes a lot more sense with either cultural or linguistic, like conversational beats and context for another language pattern, another culture. Right. But like for me, I'm still like, you're not offering to shake her hand. You're not offering her a hug. I'm just going to do this. I will reach out, grab her hand, and shake it.
Right.
And like the way he's behaved previously, it doesn't act like it is just implied. Because some people could say, no, shake her hand is the action, and then you do the I'll offer, she'll receive, and it will happen. But based on what the game has set up previously, I would expect him to just reach out, grab her hand, and shake it.
Yeah.
Because of how he has, 1, treated women, and 2, how he has treated people in his life's bodily autonomy.
Yeah, there's a lot of like physical invasiveness, and also not like an expectation of that they will respond.
Or like that they'll be involved. You
Yeah.
do this action to them, and it happens to them, but it's not a cooperative thing.
Good clarification.
And so that's I think is a really important thing here, and what I've been trying to label for a while in a lot of games is like, if the character is doing it to you, whether it's you're the object of affection or they're the object of affection, you're not participating. It's being visited upon you.
Yeah.
And you're responding or reacting to it rather than participating in it. So yeah, having it done to you basically versus it being a participatory action is a really important distinction, I feel.
Well, you know what? We're going to have to make the choice in the next one.
You betcha.
So, Guy, we will be thinking about this for a bit, guys. But thank you very much for following us. If you are having a good time with us, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Also, please feel free to share our videos if you're having also more of a good time and would like to bring more people in on it.
Hey.
And also, please feel free to go check out our Ko-Fi or Patreon. I've got some links in the description down below. And I have been Scandal.
And I have been Lies.
And it was great playing with you.
Bye!